Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Wait, Are These Guys Friends? I am Mike. I'm here with Perennial? See, I can't even insult him now, because I can't talk in the first...
Every year you insult me? Just once?
Yeah, I guess, is that what perennial is? Just every year? I thought it was just constant. I'm using the word wrong.
Actually,
I mean, you give it a look. I was going to say...
I'm curious now.
Which, to be fair, I was going to use it in like a
But isn't that
sports-like
what
term.
annual? I thought that's annual, right?
Annual.
So
I was going to
perennial
say
means
perennial constant.
lasting for an indefinitely long time. So I just assumed, you know what it is? We're like super domestic at our house now, like, and just done a bunch of landscaping, and we were talking perennials in terms of
Is that a flower?
flowers. Yeah, but that just means they come back always, not even though they come back every year, they come back always. So that's why I put. You don't care, I know, but
no. But I'm glad you looked it up, because that means I can still use my insult I was going to use to start the show. So let me pretend like none of this.
You gonna pronounce it right this time, or?
No promises, frankly. I have an interesting shaped mouth. If you've seen my TikToks, you know I got an underbite. It's a whole thing. Sometimes words just don't go well, and me no smart, me no book learn. All right, but anyway, you ready? This is gonna be great.
Yeah.
Let me get closer to the mic for it. And I'm here with perennial also Randy. Hello, Randy.
I'm suffering from the 3rd-degree burn I just was hit with. So
Thank you. See, and I knew it because I knew it would connect with you, because I was almost nervous it was an annual thing, because I thought, is that because I'm kind of taking it from a sports term, like those teams that are constantly losing, or not constantly losing, teams that almost make it. They're always like the perennial also rans is where I was getting it. Like, you know, like the Bills in the 90s, you always heard about they're perennial also rans because they got there every year, but just couldn't seal the deal. That's you in my mind, is what I'm saying. That's how I'm saying. The Buffalo Bill, the 90s Bills of this podcast. Randy. Hello, Randy.
Yes, this is deep-seated memories of not making 5th grade student council or something like that is coming up from. So thank you so much, Mike.
There's nothing wrong with being the 90s Bills. You're quite good.
That's true.
Quite good. But you're just not good enough, are you? So...
How do you identify in your sports parallel, Mike? I know sports aren't a big thing for you, but
yeah, no, honest to God,
we have one for you.
Probably. You know what? I promise I will think about it, and if I don't get it by the end of the show, remind me for next week. I will try to think of it to the point that I have one for the end of this show. But I was going to say, I actually know. I feel like I have so many friends from Buffalo, or that are Bills fans, that I know that lore way better than I should. Also, the 90s Bills Super Bowls were the ones that I remember my dad being like, we're going to Dave's and we're watching the Super Bowl. Dave is one of his close friends. And I didn't really get along with his son. Like, we were completely opposite people. Okay. So I actually, maybe that's why I hate sports, because some of my earliest sports memories are being forced to go sit and hang out with Matt and Dave while my dad watched the Super Bowl. And I had nothing in common with Matt. So, you know,
that is rough when you're a kid and you go and the parents are really good friends with the other parents, and you and the kid are just like total opposites. And you even you extend the olive branch, like once you start to talk about something and you just get shut down. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But somehow how do I say this? This is therapy now. This is not a podcast. This is not my therapy session. We wound up to the point where like he and my dad are still good friends. And like really good friends, and it's just like we wound up doing all the things they wanted to do, but his son was into all the things they wanted to do and I was not.
Oh no.
But I love my dad, so I pretended. Yeah. I had a phase where I pretended to be way more into monster trucks for my dad's sake than my own. I had do you remember in the 90s that they would do like mail order books and catalogs, or like scrapbooks of athletes and things? I had one of those for monster trucks.
Nice.
Because my dad and I never liked the monster truck show in my fucking life. Yes. He was the one I'm thinking of. He was always on the cover. He's a big deal. There was like King Kong one at the time. There was like the Kong or something, and Godzilla. They're I always wonder, were these licensed or did they eventually get sued? I don't know. But
All bets were off in the 90s, man.
yeah,
Especially early 90s.
You're so right. You think about ECW using like any entrance music they wanted. They did not ask. Sandman came out to Enter Sandman just because they're like, that sounds cool. End of story. I saw so many monster truck shows that I did not give a shit about because I was attempting to bond with my father.
Growing up in Michigan, I'm sure it came through all the time too. Yeah.
Fucking time. Sunday is not just a thing you saw or heard in movies for me. It was like, oh God, they're back. Oh God, they're back.
I guess I know what we're doing Sunday.
Oh no. Anyway, what'd you watch this week? While I talk about my sports and childhood. And by the way, hang on. I need to do this. I do not want listeners to come away from this saying I have some sort of bad relationship with my dad because of monster trucks. We are quite good.
I didn't think that. Oh, that didn't come across at all.
I was really worried that was how that came across.
If anything, the latter, to be honest, like the opposite. Like you were, because you valued that relationship. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. I was worried it was the other way. That it's like, oh, this sack of shit is just talking bad about all his father's interests and his father's friends and all this. And I was like, oh, no, it's not that. Anyway, I often wonder, was I loved? And wait, where are we?
Oh, boy.
But I'm talking about it specifically with
your
you.
Ability to turn on a dime is impressive, Mike. That would.
Yeah. Thank you.
That went from just, colloquial stories to, whoa, okay. Off the cliff.
The thing is, I'm asking you specifically, but not about my childhood, about our friendship or unfriendship or non-friendship. Randy, tell me you love me.
What's the from Home Alone 2? Nah, actually, that's taking a worse turn. I don't want to be like where he's. Never mind.
Oh no, that'd be great. Please, I want you to be as mean as possible. I was teeing you up so hard.
No. The thing is where he's like, it's from Angels with Dirtier Souls. My son is obsessed with Home Alone and Home Alone 2, so we watched it on repeat the last couple.
Wait, are you already watching them? It's only August. You're already watching Christmas movies?
Well, we've had well established from our last episode of Christmas banter back and forth. But
you're right. So did that put you? So I get on that with like hyperfixations and shit, where like a random thing will tee me off, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I should watch a bunch of those, even if it doesn't seem accurate for the moment. Did you get with that for Christmas movies after last week? Like, we should watch some Christmas movies.
It wasn't with me specifically, but my son will get into that mode where he's just in the mood to watch a bunch of them, and all of a sudden it's like, here's 6 Marvel movies in a row for whatever reason, or Harry Potter, which is always on, and things like that.
If you don't want to reveal because of personal details, I get it. How old your son? I forget. I'm sure you said it.
No,
before.
All good. He's 11. He's almost 12.
Okay. What that says to me is I got so excited about a thing I do, and you're like, yes, my 11-year-old does that too. So that's how I take that. So I was like, oh, Randy, we can relate on something. Randy, oh, I'm so excited. You do this thing I also do? And you're like, yeah, my kid does. My 11-year-old son does that. So it's like, yes. Oh, I see. Well, then.
Suffice to say, Mike, I love you. How about that?
Oh, yay. I like it when people lie.
We're not
to
friends,
me
but I love you. So it's
honest to God, so we're family. That's what that is.
There you go.
Because there you go. Wow.
What was the Josie and the Pussycats thing?
Oh gosh.
The band.
I can only,
what's the band name?
I can only yes, the pop boy band. Yes.
Right. Because they mean friendship. They mean du jour is family,
du jour
right?
means friendship. Du jour means we love each other on this podcast. Oh, that's so nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. This we're pretty good at like taking alternate routes. This may be a new low or high for the first 10 minutes.
I don't know either, but I know that like, see, I'm okay with it because like not to say I stalk the reviews, but I do. And so that's why I always know when one comes in, because I'm like, oh my God, someone paid attention to us. I'm so excited. It makes me happy. I feel like of like our 10 or so positive 5-star reviews, leave them. I'll mention again at the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Several of them are like, they really go on some turns. It's fun. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you're liking it because we just go. So that's nice.
Yeah. Unplanned.
Before we get into our main topic, which is, if you were listening last week, that was Chevy Chase versus Bill Murray, the 1980s. We went year by year, the entire decade. It came down to 1989. Chevy Chase won the decade. We will be doing the 90s shortly.
Mhm.
That said, every week I got a very important question that I asked Randy. I was trying to think, should I come up with a catchphrase? Should I come up with an intro song for this bit? Like, should I start branding this? Can I sell it to a sponsor somehow?
Yes.
Like, how, if you would like to sponsor the next segment, let me know. But for now, for free, for nothing, I'll say, Randy, what'd you watch this week? Anything good? Listen to, read. What'd you enjoy?
Read? No, that's
Oh, man, nerd.
Actually, it's funny that we were trying to get my son onto that kick and so we kind of took him to the local library and we're like, here, find books. You need to do something other than play video games or look at your phone. And he got
Sorry, real quick. I just thought of, that just made me think of, like, they talk about it like you've seen it with dogs or with animals where you need to train them to eat at a certain time. So you pretend to eat. I had this image of you pretending to read with a book, like, look, Jack, I'm doing it too. And you're just like scanning pages without reading. See, I'm reading. Yeah, Dad's reading.
left to right,
Yeah.
up and down.
Left to right. You're going the wrong way. You're going right to left. Look, son, Dad's reading too.
I mean, if it was an Arabic novel, it would be fine.
You're right. I was being insensitive. Tell me right now how many foreign languages you speak fluently and can read.
None? No.
Oh, okay.
No. I actually, French, sort of. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
And
that's nice.
I don't speak it very well, but I can digest it. That's
cool.
That's about the only one. That's just carryover from, many years of schooling and then studying abroad and stuff like that. So.
I just worked with a director who speaks fluent French, and they're not French, like their family's French, and I didn't expect it. They knew a camera person who spoke French, and out of nowhere on headset, like they're like doing something, and it was just the two of them. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This is amazing. I don't know. Okay, cool. I'm just going to sit here because I know nothing. Anyway.
Yeah.
Your son started reading for the first time. It's how I took that story.
No, the crazy part was that I grabbed like a couple books too. I don't just casually, and I don't read anything of particular merit. It's usually like murder mysteries and stuff like that. It's just no different than watching a movie, kind of, just same kind of idea. And he ended up not only finishing the two books he got, he read one of the books that I got. So I was like, all right.
What book was that you got that he decided to read?
It was a book called, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was about these, so they're not called gypsies, they're called travelers, and they're a particular group of folks that came over from Ireland and I guess are located throughout the country. Mostly this was located in Tennessee, so I guess it's based in fact. It's not like a factual. It's no.
I didn't expect it to be a nonfiction book. I don't know why.
It wasn't. It's like not historical fiction, but the people are based in fact of this group called the Travelers, but it was a unique story. So like
I see. I like that. It's like a historical fiction where it weaves in and out.
I mean, calling it historical, I guess it's meant to take place.
Current
time. Well, current times, but
okay.
Utilizing a group of people, and the author did the research on these group of people who they live in kind of these villages that are all campers and stuff like that. Like I in my head kind of started to think of from Snatch, the Guy Ritchie movie. Like
I went the other way. Did you ever watch Dr. Sleep, the Shining sequel from a couple of years ago? It's real good.
Is it? Okay. I heard varying reviews, so okay.
I really enjoyed it. I thought Ewan McGregor's performance was fantastic.
Okay.
There's the do you want spoilers?
Yeah, let me go check it out. Actually, like my wife really likes Ewan McGregor, and so like, well, that's when maybe we're always looking for something to watch, so we'll throw that in the mix.
What I would say is, I would love to talk to you about it next week if you watch it. I thought it was an extremely pleasant surprise.
Okay.
Because it's I'm not sure how well it ties into the novel, but basically, without spoiling too much, there's a group of people in this movie that made me think of it when you started describing it.
Interesting.
And maybe I'm off, maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but I thought of it based on the group of, frankly, bad guys in the movie. So we'll see. Okay, so reading, and maybe something for next week. Maybe if you got the time, it'd be a delight. But did you watch anything? Did you watch anything, you nerd? Now that you just read all week long.
I wasn't me. It was more Jack than me. So it's
Oh, that's right. Did you actually read the book? Did you read the book that he read that
yes,
you got?
I had already read that one,
Oh,
and then there
okay.
was one other one that I was starting. I'm still in the process of reading it, but so he was like, "Oh, what's this one?" And it started a good, interesting kind of deep dive into what this travelers people were. So we looked that up. So anyway, but yeah, but in addition. Yes, there were a few things I watched. I started because and maybe it was because the new season just came out on Max of Industry, which is I think a BBC Max joint venture. And did you ever see it was on Showtime. The
Is this
Don
up to 3 seasons? This show I've never heard of that I'm just
it's on
Googling?
its third season now, yes.
Wow, how about that? Okay, yeah, I've never heard of it until this moment
So
right now.
and it was because maybe just because it was on the front splash page, and I said, oh, okay, well, let me kind of see what this is about. And basically, it takes place in a London banking firm, kind of a JP Morgan Chase, that type of thing, but in London. And it's a bunch of these graduates that are trying to get their footing to make it through this. And so it's your typical sort of beautiful people in their 20s trying to make it in this finance environment where it's kind of like, and I don't know what
It's
the
a
word is.
British CW show, is what you're telling me?
You know? Yeah, it's with a little bit better acting, maybe. Yeah, like it, but yeah, like if Gossip Girl if they all went and worked for for on Wall Street, yeah, maybe that's what it is. So
Okay.
but they do have sort of a diversity of characters. It's interesting. So it's not just all British actors. There's a couple American actors in it, and so making it take place in London and taking place in the banking industry gives it at least that sort of international appeal. So the
Interesting.
one of the main characters is American, and her mentor is also American, and then everybody
Okay.
else is British. But I would say it's a very good kind of backgroundy type show where you can watch it but not watch it.
Did you watch anything else? I actually have a couple things, but I don't want to. I don't want to cut you off with the knees.
One more too. My wife and I had never seen the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, so we watched that over the weekend, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was about a half hour too long. I
No, I
thought it was
agree. I agree.
very slowly paced, which I'm okay with, but there were times where it felt like there was about a half hour in the middle, maybe from like an hour 30 to 2 hours. I'm like, come on. But the rest of it I thought was very well done, very interesting. Kudos to the makeup people. I would have never known that was Colin Farrell.
Now, before you said you hadn't seen it last time we talked about this
Mhm.
because I brought up the Penguin show. Does this make you have any interest in the forthcoming Penguin show, or are you still tapped out on it?
I think I would give it a chance. I'm more interested in if they make another movie, I think, than that series. And I'm hoping they don't Marvelize it where I have to watch Penguin to understand what happens in the next movie.
I agreed. So it's interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about the Batman here because my stuff is actually both items are Batman related. We
Oh,
did not
nice.
know this was going to happen. So we can dovetail this into a little bit more of a discussion here. So there are some people, and I'm hoping that a sequel. I really liked this movie.
Mhm.
I thought he was an amazing Batman and a so-so Bruce Wayne, with the caveat of this is such an early Bruce Wayne that he is still developing. So
Mm,
if in the sequel it is down the road and maybe he's figured out a little bit more of the character, both who he is and who he pretends to be,
right.
because in this movie there's no fake Bruce Wayne, but I was fine with that because he's still young and angry and tortured, like legitimately trauma still from the parents. I
Yeah.
don't feel like even Batman Begins, by the time you catch up with Bruce Wayne, he's so far along this journey that while the trauma is obviously there, he's compartmentalized it. So in the next movie, he'll be faking it in public. Does that make sense for
It
you?
does, yeah. Really, and the more I think about it, really good job from him. Now, granted, he's in a mask for 80% of the movie or whatever, but at no point during that movie did I think it's the vampire. You know what I mean? Like it's just good on Robert Pattinson for like, you know, and not that he ever led into that.
No, but
and
he's
just,
turned into a very good actor. He
Yeah.
does a lot of stuff that like, and not just both he and Daniel Radcliffe. And I say that not that they were in the same franchise, but they're of that vibe, that era that we've got to not be pigeonholed. We could be easily, if this was the 90s or 80s, like they're child actors who never do anything ever again.
Right.
But the thing is I feel like people have seen what happens when you do that to child actors. And you saw what happened to Jake Lloyd after episode 1 when people were angry about him. That kid's life was ruined.
Yeah.
They're of an era where they were allowed to break out and grow and become actors, and they've both done amazing work. Robert Pattinson's a very good actor.
Mm-hmm.
People still want to make Twilight jokes because they haven't taken the time. I believe Batman Part 2 is confirmed. It got delayed for, there's the writer's strike, the actor's strike. They need to do other things, blah, blah, blah. The problem is, at one point, I think it was supposed to be coming out end of this year. It is not scheduled to be released until October 2026. And I don't think it started shooting yet, which makes me nervous because until that movie starts shooting, it could get canceled because it's Warner Brothers. Because it's fucking David Zaslav and Warner Brothers. They could shoot the entire thing, edit the entire thing, be ready to release the entire thing, and then cancel it. Until I'm sitting in the theater watching that movie, I'm nervous about the future of this movie. So
what do you think there before we get into your stuff? So is that going to be from a villain standpoint? I know there was
I wish they hadn't teased. Why do you always have to tease a Joker? I really liked what they were doing without a Joker. Why do you always have to tease a Joker? If they hadn't teased a Joker, I would almost rate it higher. I don't want to see this Batman with the Joker at all right now. I'm good. I'm Jokered out. I don't need it.
They can't help themselves.
I know. Money. They did a really interesting thing with Riddler. I'd love to see them do more interesting things with villains. Now, here's the thing. I want to talk about what I liked about the movie first, and the things I didn't like about it aren't because I didn't like it in this movie. It's what I'm sick to death of as a Batman franchise, which is what will also tie into what I watched.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to know, I loved his relationship with Gordon and the cops. It's the most comic book accurate I've ever seen. He is a detective. He is not a myth to the cops because he works with Gordon.
Yep.
I'm sick to death of the myth aspect of Batman because we've done it. He's a Batman.
He's a symbol.
They know he's there. And the thing is, that's what he would do in the comics, is they would just hold a reporter or they'd hold people at the door and they'd be like, why can't I come into the scene? Don't worry about it. It's because Batman's in there and everybody knows he's in there.
Mm.
And some of the cops are cool with it and some of the cops are angry. I felt like it became a tagline to say, oh, this showed Detective Batman. This is Batman as a detective. But it did. This was Batman at his most detective-y, which I loved because he's a very good detective. I don't know. I think the relationship with Alfred was good. I hated it until they saved it. And then I realized I realized I got played. They were taking me on the journey they wanted to take me on.
Mm-hmm.
He was angry at Alfred. You're not my dad, blah, 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 except he is his dad. And they take him on that journey, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I would like to talk a little bit more Batman mythos, as it were.
All right.
I watched the first 2 episodes of Caped Crusader on Prime Video. And first off, it's the return of Bruce Timm to the Batman franchise. He is one of the shepherds. It was Paul Dini, Bruce Timm, who did the 90s Batman series. Bruce Timm is the one who created the art style. And this is his art style. It looks a lot like the 90s Batman series because it's his art style. It's a little more rounded edges than sharp edges regarding in the 90s had that very square jaw line type thing. He rounds them off a little more. But it is you're going to look this, be like, oh, this looks like the animated series. Yeah, it's Bruce Timm. It's his art style. He's back. It's him creating.
Shadows, dark.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. Okay, yeah.
Exactly. You're going to look at it and it feels like the sequel spiritually in that regard. Pacing wise, acting wise, script wise, it's very good. It's a good show. The thing that I was a little taken aback by, and I'm disappointed by, is it's another he's new at being Batman. I'm so fucking sick of him being new at being Batman.
We know this dude. Let's get into it.
Also, it's really leaning heavy into Golden Age Batman. And by like golden age, I'm talking 40s Gothic style, which was always that series, that vibe from Batman the Animated Series.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going so golden age that Alfred's fat. And I know that sounds silly, but golden age Alfred was a fat British man with black hair as opposed to your slender, white-haired man.
Mm-hmm.
They're going, and he calls him Pennyworth instead of Alfred.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's so well written and acted, and the animation is gorgeous. It's hard not to enjoy the show, right? I watched the first 2 episodes, and it's very good. But as a fan, I'm so sick of I'm figuring out that I'm Batman, and I have to learn how I care and learn, and I'm new, and I'm like, and I'm taking over, and Gotham is infested by the mob, and it's like, yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this a lot. I've seen this a ton. You're lucky that your show has the talent it has behind it, because I am sick to death of this era. It is so goddamn played out. Anyway, we're going to do Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, because Chevy won the 1980s, and by the way, let's give a little backstory here. Both of them are really riding high leaving the 80s. Neither one of them, and I thought this was going to be the opposite. I mentioned this last week.
Yeah.
Based on where their careers go, I thought both of them were going to leave the 80s on the downward swing, right? That is not the case. 1989 has 2 massive hits for Chevy in Christmas Vacation and Fletch Lives, and Ghostbusters 2 for Bill Murray. These movies make bank. Some of them become cultural classics. They're always replayed on cable. They leave the 80s as big a stars as they've ever been. There's no decline.
Sure.
Any decline is going to happen this decade, which is fascinating to me, because Chevy did have one bad year in the 80s, but he ended it so strong that it's just fascinating to me to say where we're starting. At 1990, I would say, let's start. And it's so funny because they're like, let's give Chevy the nod. Doesn't do anything. He has a hell of a 1989. He appears in a TV special that I remember as a kid, the Earth Day special, because this is when they would do big celebrity TV specials, and they would get all of these people to show up for 2 minutes. It's like they did the cartoon All-Stars, Don't Do Drugs, where they got all the cartoon characters back.
Mm-hmm.
This was live action, let's save the Earth, because it's 1990 okay. And we decided we care now. And it was interesting because they got people to show up as like a couple, they weren't playing themselves. It was Danny DeVito, Dan Aykroyd, and Chevy Chase together, I remember, as Vic and his buddies. And then, but they also had Michael Douglas as himself. But then Kevin Costner was a bartender. And downtown Julie Brown played herself, but Candice Bergen was Murphy Brown. And Dustin Hoffman played multiple lawyers, but Will Smith played himself. Heavy D played himself, but Rodney Dangerfield was a random fake doctor. It was very confusing who decided to act as a part, who played themselves, and it was so. And then there was a Cheers segment directed by James Burrows, and there were other people. There was a Married to Children segment. It was broadcast. One of those things that was broadcast across every network, as I recall. I'm going to double check that. That part I may have made up. But I think because Cartoon All-Stars was broadcast across every network, I think this was every network's going to participate and every network's doing this.
Okay. So all bets are off.
This does not give him a point, yes or no.
No.
It's just fascinating that he was in this in 1990 when he was a megastar. Do you sound like you don't remember the Earth Day special?
I don't at all.
Okay. So I'm going to bring up, oh my God, I was going to bring up a commercial, hopefully. That's the whole thing. Also, Christopher Lloyd played Doc Brown in the Earth Day special. Uh-oh. I want you to know that.
I might need to watch it. I don't remember this at all, though.
And then he was in another Paul Simon music video, but it's No You Can Call Me Al. I don't remember this one at all. But he gets no point for these because we are only counting films.
Interesting side note there, though. I had forgotten, and I think I read this found it in my research when I was just looking up the Paul Simon video because I got curious, and then it was also in the Saturday Night Live book that we talked about live from New York. So Chevy Chase actually has perfect pitch.
I'd heard that because he was in Steely Dan.
Yep. And played band drums in a band in college or whatever, but can play a multitude of instruments kind of just by listening to him, which is crazy. So.
But let's talk Bill Murray, 1990. which is a swing, frankly. It is Quick Change, the only movie that Bill Murray ever directed, and he co-directed it with a man called Howard Franklin, which is a fascinating thing because I don't know if that was brought on by a studio or he just thought, I don't know what I'm doing and I need to bring someone in. And I have notes on Howard Franklin later because he becomes kind of a recurring thing in some of these Bill Murray movies. It's a weird movie that I did not see as a kid because I had no interest in it as a kid. And I only went and saw it like as I was getting older because I thought, especially in like the late 90s, early 2000s, oh, I love Bill Murray. Here's a Bill Murray movie I've never seen because it definitely is not made for kids. It's a very adult film. What do you think of Quick Change? Do you want to hit a plot? Do you care to hit a plot? Or is it not worth it? It's just to know that Bill Murray made a crime movie with Gina Davis and Randy Quaid.
Yeah, heist-ish movie. Yeah.
It's all these New York things. It's a very New York movie.
Yeah,
it's you might say it's a love letter to New York. And I think he even said that at one point.
And very much of its time. I mean, you saw a lot of these movies in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And they just, I feel like they don't do New York movies as much anymore. Maybe it's so expensive or whatever. But
the city lose its identity as a New York. Listen, I'm just going to say it. Post 9/11, I think people were scared to make New York identity movies. And then also did New York's identity become a little more patriotic fervor for a long time. And that's a delicate thing to say, but I stand by it, that its identity shifted from the grime, gritty, we're New York, stereotypical, to let's lift it up. And it becomes a different type of thing where you can't make this kind of movie for New York.
I think, too, it became even more international, too, right? Like, I mean, New York was always an international city. I mean, always a melting pot of a lot of different people. But I think even more so, it was very much a specific type of folks lived in certain neighborhoods and things like that in the 70s and the 80s. And there were places you went and, you know, neighborhoods that you knew about. And then all of a sudden it kind of became this, just everybody lives there from all over the world live in New York. And so maybe that's part of it too, is that it was just a time in New York, and that's what it always, and these are reflective of that.
And this is before, and listen, I don't want to get into what he became later. This is before Giuliani cleaned up New York in the 90s too. This is filmed in
the grimy, gritty New York was very much a specific site. I stumbled upon this movie once watching on, I don't even know, would this have been on Comedy Central, which sounds weird?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think it was Comedy Central may know, but I remember this vividly being like a late night TBS TNT style movie.
Gotcha.
It would be 2 a.m. and fucking Quick Change is on.
And I think I stumbled on it where it was one of those movies, and these are always kind of fun, where you start to watch it and you're half paying attention. You know, I was doing another activity, but I had something on in the background, and then I just kind of kept getting into the story. And so by the time it was done, I wasn't like, I didn't say that was the best movie I've ever seen in the world, but that held my attention. And that was an interesting plot that continued to develop as it went. And so like, I was invested in it. And so I remember it favorably because of that.
It's interesting to say, because he's going to get the point for the year simply based on the fact that he put a movie out.
Yep.
He co-directed it. He had a lot to do with it. He clearly put the effort in. However, before we get anything else on it, this movie was a very famous bomb for the era because, again, this is the first thing he's done after the 80s. He's coming off Ghostbusters 2. He's putting his name on this. I'm co-directing it. I'm starring in it. This is like a passion project in a way. But that being said, I did look up the trivia. Apparently, Jonathan Demme at one point was supposed to direct. He became unavailable. So Howard Franklin and Bill Murray decided to do it themselves. Howard Franklin wrote it. Bill Murray was going to star in it. So I decided they could just handle it themselves. And you'll note Bill Murray never directed another movie, so maybe he felt differently after. So, but this movie only grossed $15 million on a $17 million budget. And I would like to note that sometimes when I talk about that, I'm like, well, domestic versus worldwide. No, that is a confirmed worldwide $15 million gross on a $17 million budget. And that's rough. However, certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which is reviews from the time, you got 37 reviews. It's sitting at 84%, 6.7 out of 10 average. Metacritic, a little worse, which is, I think Metacritic is more fan ratings, as I recall, right? and what like the regular people think versus the critics. Roger Ebert didn't love it, but he didn't hate it. We've
Sure.
heard much worse Roger Ebert, much more vitriol from Roger Ebert. Funny, but not an inspired comedy. It has two directors. I wonder if that has anything to do with its inability to be more than just efficiently entertaining, which frankly is probably where it comes down to, that the movie comes across as fine. Is there anything you want to say about the movie before I do hit one other note that I have to talk about for it?
Yeah, I think I know where you're going on this. That was one when in my research I found out too, and I would stunned.
And I have to mention it because if you don't mention it, if
Yep.
you've heard a couple of these things come out more in recent years, but please, anything else on the movie before I go down?
I mean, Jason Robards is great. In most things he does, I think really nice performance in that as well, and Randy Quaid too. So it just really some good ancillary performances, extra performances alongside what Bill Murray and Gina Davis are doing. I think so. I did worth your time to seek out to see kind of what they're doing. Ultimately, I think that cinema score of a B is perfectly acceptable and kind of showcasing what this movie is. It's if you're looking to just sit down and watch something and not be wowed, amazed, overcome, like it's not a bad movie to do that.
Yeah, well said. So before I get into the actual thing I was going to say, when you say that Jason Robards is very good in most things that he does that include still Dream a Little Dream, the Corey Feldman, Corey Haim body swap movie that we talked about several weeks ago?
I don't know.
Are you referencing that first of mind as when you think of a Jason Robards film, be like, God damn, I need to watch.
So depends on which trailer we're talking about, because one of the trailers.
Oh, we're not doing this again. Shut it down. Shut it down. We're done. We're moving on. I regret this. We're not getting into that. Go listen to the body swap episode if you haven't. That's the fucking thing we're talking about.
No, we can absolve him of maybe that was a payday.
So it's interesting because you do have to mention, and this becomes more of a thing in the 90s, Gina Davis in her memoir in 2022 did say that Bill Murray sexually harassed her on this film, was mean to her while he was directing this film, screamed at her. She would tell him to stop and do things, and he was a dick. And a lot of people were shocked. I would say that for all the stories you hear of Bill Murray's, he just showed up. I didn't know he was going to be there. He was so aloof. Part of that aloofness does seem that he has a real... The aloofness could also be assholishness sometimes, it seems like. And aloofness could be... You've heard about Lucy Liu and Bill Murray in the 2000s, where he apparently was just awful to her, and that's why he was not invited back to the sequel. Like, he was just incredibly rude to her on set and just very mean and insulting to Lucy Liu on set about, like, her level of talent. And so we are going to probably talk lovingly about Bill Murray in this because we love his movies. And there are times where it seems like he is a very genuinely good dude. But you can't ignore that sometimes he's an asshole. And I say that saying that I can just get one story out of the way now if we're ping-ponging. By the way, Bill Murray gets the point for 1990 for everything we said.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to lead off with one of these stories to talk about Bill Murray's 1991 movie, which is a classic for a lot of people, a mega hit, big deal, Bill Murray, Richard Dreyfuss, of which Richard Dreyfuss described Bill Murray as a drunken bully in a June 2019 interview, where he talked about What About Bob, where he said, intoxicated upon returning from dinner, Murray allegedly approached Dreyfuss and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Everyone hates you. You are tolerated." There was no time to react because he leaned back and he took a modern glass blown ashtray. He threw it at my face from a couple feet away. And it weighed about 3/4 of a pound, and he missed me. He tried to then hit me again. I got up and left.
Jeez.
So I needed to lead with that because it was kind of the best transition of an asshole on Quick Change to apparently an asshole on What About Bob.
It's such a downer on such a fun movie, but yeah.
So, funny thing about What About Bob, I don't like this movie.
Interesting.
And I didn't like it as a kid. This isn't, I found it later and I wasn't a fan of it. As a kid, he's so deeply unlikable to me in this movie. And he drives, I actually I never thought Richard Dreyfuss was the bad guy in this movie, and he is. Oh, Bob's a special kind of friend. Richard Dreyfuss is right every step of the way. Richard Dreyfuss, for anyone who hasn't seen What About Bob, is a psychiatrist. Bill Murray is a new patient of his, like right before he goes on vacation. Bill Murray stalks his family, follows his family, and everyone falls in love with him. He's lovable. Oh, Bob, ha ha ha. But he ingratiates himself into a psychiatrist's family. Bill Murray's the bad guy. I don't care what you say. Fuck that.
It's kind of Cape Fear in a different take, isn't it?
It is, which is so funny because Cape Fear, I think this is comedic Cape Fear. Yes,
really
this is comedic Cape Fear. So, what do you think about What About Bob? You said, oh, what a fun movie. You clearly like What About Bob.
I think it's entertaining. Yeah, it's twisted and definitely.
I don't have vitriol against What About Bob. I'm indifferent to it. It's just I never cared for it.
No, but definitely, when I say fun, I think it's amusing. Maybe that fun is probably the incorrect way to describe it, because to watch the undoing of Richard Dreyfuss's character, Dr. Leo Marvin, is not Dr. Leo Marvin. What's his name? Dr.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You nailed it. You love this movie. Also, frankly, maybe I should like it because it's one of those rare post-Airplane Julie Haggerty movies where she's the love interest. I forget her name. She's the woman from Airplane. Right. That's what I can say. Woman from Julie Haggerty from Airplane. That's all I can say. I don't remember her name. But I'm like, oh, look, it's her and she's working. Good for her. I'm so happy.
I think it's more the set pieces that I like in this than I do the actual, when I step back and think about the overall plot and the overall kind of messed up nature of the fact of what is happening. Is just, Bob sitting at the dinner table and doing with all, I mean, it's just dumb, but it's like a great showcase for Murray just getting completely over the top. And certain things, that the baby steps at the end, the fact that he would be completely tied up, and then because he can apply Dr. Leo Marvin's, psychological profile or steps to that, he's able to untie himself and blow up Dr. Marvin's house. I don't know. It's just, there are several things that very much amuse me, probably more than the overall point of what's going on in the story.
I don't have anything to say about this movie because I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I will hit you with, I'll hit you with the stuff we need to cover. It was a big hit.
No.
It in the U.S. alone, it made $64 million. With the talent involved, it had a little higher budget of $40 million. But in 1991, when you're bringing in $25 million minimum, you're a hit. People like you. You keep going. You keep making movies.
Yep.
It's how it does. This was directed by Frank Oz, who I believe had a lot of issues with Richard Dreyfuss. And I would like to note, by the way, that for everything I led with the Bill Murray, Richard Dreyfuss is famously an asshole on set, and everybody hates him. Also, quite recently was at a Jaws screening where he made transphobic comments. So okay. I would like to know, I led with that transition because it really worked. But by all accounts, I read a Reddit post that was like, what about Bob? One of the few One of the few movies where Bill Murray wasn't the biggest asshole on set. So it was like, there it is. So it was probably two people with, they're just button heads. You know what I mean? And by all accounts, Frank Oz, who seems like a lovely man, a kind man, he's fucking worked with the Muppets, just such a nice guy. He seems like everything he's done seems like fun and good. This to him was kind of like he had done Little Shop. He had been making movies that weren't just the Muppets. To me, I think this is sort of, I don't want to say a shot for him, because he'd make Dirty Rotten Scoundrels in '88, which was a big hit. And by all accounts, people are like, yes, let's keep giving him, live action
super fun movie too, by the way. So
yes. So great movie. So he gets What About Bob in '91. I would like to read some of the production difficulties. First, Oz has confirmed in an interview, and I am taking this just from Wikipedia, by the way. I'm going to read the Wikipedia. You could go find this yourself. If you don't want to hear my voice read a Wikipedia, I'm reading Wikipedia.
Yep.
Oz has confirmed in interviews there was conflict on the set. In addition, both Murray and Dreyfuss have stated they didn't get along with each other during filming. So I would like to find the Frank Oz quote. I was just trying to get the best out of both of them. Richard's a very structured person. I'm not structured. Billy's very unstructured. Which, by the way, you would like to note that he directed Bill Murray in Little Shop of Horrors. And so they probably clearly got along. I know that's a cameo, but we talked about it. It's a famous, fun cameo. Sure. And also the fact that in this interview, he called him Billy says to me what side he probably fell on in this. Yeah. You have the opposite going against each other. And as a matter of fact, I just wrote Richard a letter after all these years because I was looking at that movie and I realized how brilliant Richard's work was. But no, they didn't get along. And in my perverse directorial intent, I was also kind of pleased by this because they're not supposed to get along. It's not that I was simpatico with Bill. I just leaned more towards the ideas that Bill had. But I'm very grateful to Richard for his performance. So that, to me, says he probably didn't get along with Richard Dreyfuss, but was trying to be more polite about it.
Gotcha.
So there's just a lot of stuff talking about this. But there's also another Bill Murray story that came out in the 2000s. And this isn't great. Producer Laura Ziskin recalled having a disagreement with Murray that resulted in his tossing her into a lake. Ziskin confirmed in 2003, Bill also threatened to throw me across the parking lot and broke my sunglasses and threw those glasses across the parking lot. I was furious and outraged at the time. And having produced more than a dozen movies since then, I can safely say that is not common behavior.
Okay.
So here's my question. We were not hearing these stories in the 80s.
Right.
Did he develop a I'm Bill Murray 80s ego? Or was he working with people that were, think about who he worked with in the 80s. It was a lot of his people, Harold Ramis's, your Ivan Reitman, the people that came up with him. Now he's branching out. Was he always this asshole and now we're finding it out? Or did he develop something behind the scenes that on camera, we love him, but behind the scenes, he's becoming a problem? Do you have any thoughts on that? Just a gut reaction?
I mean, my gut reaction would be he just is so used to a particular type of, and that, I mean, you could even push it back to Saturday Night Live, right? Like, so this push the envelope type style where everything is, there's nothing off limits, right? In theory, like you are going right up to that line and then diving over it, right? Like that's just the way that it seems to be. Anything that he was working on was invoking that kind of behavior. Behavior is the wrong word, but willing to say, okay, yeah, everyone here, nothing is taken, everything's taken with a grain of salt here. It's whatever is said is not, nobody takes anything personally specifically. Not that in some of those retellings.
I mean, Gina Davis seems pretty upset about it.
Of course, yeah, and I'm not saying that shouldn't be taken with it. That should be absolutely heard. But I'm just wondering if you do that for a decade, you do that for 15 years, and it just becomes ingrained in your own mind as usual behavior and just kind of kidding around. And it's no, it's definitely not okay. But maybe it's why.
But no, I get why it would keep happening because this was fine. Why is it suddenly not fine? And an inability to figure that out. And then also protected by celebrity and money and talent. It's none of that's great, but I don't know. I was just curious. Sorry to take it to that place, but these stories keep coming up, especially movie to movie, back to back to back. We'll end it back on the movie. The critics liked it. It was very well received. Siskel gave it a thumbs down. Ebert gave it a thumbs up. Leonard Maltin loved it.
Did you see Maltin's what he called it? I thought that was a funny take on it.
Roadrunner and Coyote.
Yeah,
that was good.
That's an excellent.
Listen, I know for a fact that this movie is beloved by a lot of people. Some people just fucking adore this movie. I'm again indifferent on it.
It's fascinating. I know we're doing Bill Murray and all the guy who wrote the screenplay, Tom Shulman, is the guy who won the Academy Award for Dead Poets Society, and he was brought in basically with like a couple weeks to turn Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It was originally a drama, and he rewrote it to turn it into the comedy. Was? Yeah, how crazy is that?
I didn't. How have I missed that over the years?
Don't you? And you love that movie, don't you? So
yeah, that's fascinating. So, I mean, admittedly, I love it, and I would watch it any time. I don't think I've done a big lore deep dive on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but now maybe I should.
There we go.
How about
maybe that? Rick Moranis is in the future, but and then to tie it all back together, Tom Shulman also the guy who wrote the screenplay for What About Bob. His directorial, I don't know I think it was his debut, and he did one other one, but it doesn't look like it was 8 heads in a duffel bag. So,
oh, wow, tailing it way back to what is still our most streamed and downloaded episode, our our Joe Pesci and who the fuck was the other one? Deep dive? I forget who the other
Ferrell.
one was. Was it Will Ferrell? Wow, that's such a weird choice for us. I think it made sense at the time, I'm sure, but man, like Joe Pesci makes sense to me that we would do that. The Will Ferrell one, I think, was related stuff we were talking about at the time. But how about that?
Remember. Yeah, we had talked about the Brad Pack, and that's not the Brad Pack, Frat Pack. Sorry.
Also, by the way, yeah, the lost episode. that episode is when we still were trying to have the format. It was episode 6. It was Will Ferrell and Joe Pesci deep dive. We had you talk about an album, and we talked about an episode of The Simpsons. Boy, we gave up on that a long time ago.
Remember when we did that?
Yeah, that was fun. We're going to do this every week. This is what we're doing. Randy, we're saying the same things about The Simpsons every week. Randy, I don't have anything else to say about your album other than I'll listen to it. All right.
Let's find something different.
Yeah. Yeah, we're finding it. It's good. We're okay. One day, right. For like 100th episode, we'll bring it back to make our 100th episode confusing.
Yes. Oh boy. So, I just realized where we're going now. Chevy in 91, huh?
Oh my God. So like a month ago, maybe more than a month ago, I said there was a point when you talked about Tupac and he had a cameo in this movie, which we get into. There have been at least a couple of times in this podcast, I go, I need a reason to talk about Nothing But Trouble. We'll save it for when we have a reason to talk about Nothing But Trouble. Oh my God, Randy, it's here. Oh my God. And by the way, when we came up with these topics, I just was thinking, I was almost more focused on the 80s and like a general decline in the 90s. Yeah. When I had suggested this, I didn't think about the fact that I was going to get to talk finally about Nothing But Trouble. What a bizarre movie.
I'll be honest, I forgot he was in it. He was the main guy in it. Like it was one of those things when I go back in, because I just remember like Dan Aykroyd in Horrible and John Candy as the daughter or the granddaughter. I remembered everybody else except for I'd kind of forgot Chevy Chase was in it.
It's so odd to me because this really, everything I want to talk about for this movie really should be in a Dan Aykroyd deep dive. And there's almost a part of me that wants to say, you know what? And I might be dying into this now. We've talked about doing more Dan Aykroyd because he had a fall, like a career fall, and has really gone in places. Maybe we hit some highlights here. We talk about it. But maybe we do just keep kicking this can down the road. Yeah. Because here's the thing. This was directed by Dan Aykroyd. It was written by Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd plays multiple parts. The story was by his brother, Peter Aykroyd. This is a Dan Aykroyd project because this movie had a budget of $45 million.
Incredible, isn't it?
This movie took in a worldwide box office of $8 million. Nobody wanted to see this movie. Nobody paid to see this movie. This is Dan Aykroyd unleashed. And it made no money. It made no fucking... By the way, that $45 million was a $5 million over budget. It had a $40 million budget. It couldn't finish on budget. And it became a $45 million.
That is incredible.
Bomb. Like, I listen, we can talk about the plot because Chevy Chase
and you find it?
Yeah, it's a lot. Okay. By the way, I would like to note cinematography by Oscar winner Dean Cundey, who did Halloween, the Back to the Future trilogy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park, Apollo 13, The Thing, Escape from New York. This movie is like the bank that can't fail, too big to fail.
Right.
This movie is, my God, they get pulled over by John Candy in his first role and they get brought to court into the weird rundown, shutdown town of Vulcanvania. And that's where I'm going to stop because shit goes off the rails. I'm talking murders and bizarre traps and I think cannibalism and like characters being held hostage, and I can't do this movie justice in the time I'm trying to have this take, especially when I really want to talk about the Dan Aykroyd stuff. I want to talk about the writing, the acting, the producing. What I want to say about this for Chevy Chase is This destroyed Dan Aykroyd's career.
Yeah.
Like, properly destroyed Dan Aykroyd's career. He never recovers from this. He does stuff in the 90s, but Dan Aykroyd never recovers from Nothing But Trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Chevy Chase has his shots. The thing is he really only agreed to it because he loved Dan Aykroyd and wanted to work with his, old Saturday Night Live buddy. Chevy Chase says he didn't like the script. He took the leading role because he wanted to work with him, and he thought they could improve the movie by the two of them improvising. It never came together. And it's just, I'm rambling. Talk, please. I need to get my thoughts together.
I think Chevy is sort of weirdly, and we never talk about this with him, but sort of forgiven for this movie, right? Like, because
Yes.
It feels like he's kind of along for the ride. Like, he's trying to be the, like, I've seen the backstory of it where like Dan and Peter Aykroyd went and saw Hellraiser, I think, right, with the producer, and like that was kind of what started the idea of this to like germinate. So
I hadn't heard that. According to IMDb, which could be wrong, Dan Aykroyd was pulled over in a rural town in 1978. The police officer took him to a local justice of the peace in the middle of the night for a trial. So he had the germ of an idea for that since then.
Oh, okay. So we're looking at this, it says, I guess, the idea of Hellraiser sort of, even though it was a horror, had slight comedic aspect, like kind of.
I fucking loved Hellraiser. Can we talk about Hellraiser? I love that movie.
Trying to be a horror comedy. I guess that's what it was introduced.
Oh, Hellraiser is not a comedy. Hang on. Hellraiser is not a comedy. Hellraiser is a very serious erotic horror movie.
Yeah. What are they talking about here? Wikipedia is not helping.
Where are you reading that? Hellraiser as a comedy? I mean, there's maybe a dark comedy, but like Hellraiser is erotic. People want to fuck in that movie. Yeah, people want to watch Hellraiser and fuck.
Okay, I'm rereading my research here, but
you're worse than Wikipedia.
I am. How about that?
They went and saw Hellraiser because they didn't want to laugh.
Oh.
The story was developed after Dan and Peter Aykroyd went to go see a movie with Robert K. Weiss, who produced The Blues Brothers, by the way, and produced the future one. But it could not be a comedy because it hurt him to laugh.
I think he produced this too, didn't he? Yeah.
They wanted to make a horror comedy after seeing a horror movie together. They wanted audiences to laugh and be scared.
My research was substandard, so.
I was about to say, have you seen Hellraiser? It's real good.
Yeah, which is why I was like, why did it say that? But
yeah, because it didn't sound like you'd seen Hellraiser because you thought it was a comedy and you didn't talk about wanting to fuck after it because you see Hellraiser and you want to fuck. You want to fuck. Anyway, sorry, you were saying?
Chevy gets kind of, because I do think he's the one that's trying to at least be sort of not completely over the top in this movie. It's as I recall. I haven't seen it in a long time.
It's funny you say that because the crew, apparently they love John Candy and Demi Moore, but Chevy Chase was Chevy Chase. There's a lot of these guys being assholes in this episode today. But it's interesting because I'm going to read a trivia bit, and I don't want to apologize. I don't want to forgive people for being assholes, especially knowing who Chevy Chase is and what he does later. This is not probably what I would say it was, but on knowing that he wanted to do the movie and he wanted to work with Dan Aykroyd, he was probably not able to vocalize properly how let down he was and how frustrated he was because Chase was verbally abusive on set and was furious, and the crew was furious at his treatment of Aykroyd, with one crew member threatening to drop a brick on Chase's head if he ever spoke to Dan Aykroyd the way he had again. So that said, he also apparently made rude comments to Demi Moore about a skimpy costume. So I don't know what to fucking say. These people are really coming off terrible in the 90s. Yikes. We talked about their beloved 80s where everyone was loving them, and now they're bombing and angry in the 1990s, which, it's about to be the grunge era. Maybe they're just angry. That's the 90s. Early 90s is angry.
I feel like this entire discussion is pretty emblematic of the movie. It's just kind of a jumbled mess.
Yes.
Yes. With uncomfortable things emerging from what we find out.
Yeah, it's just what a thing. You know who I feel bad for? Dean Cundy. I'm gonna look up right now. Dean Cundy, Nothing But Trouble. I want to know if this Oscar-winning cinematographer ever had a comment about Nothing But Trouble.
It's funny you talked about the Batman movies, and you're like, boy, I hope Warner Brothers doesn't shut this down. You know who did this movie? Warner
Was it Warner
Brothers.
Brothers? Oh, okay. I mean, here's
Why
the
didn't you
thing,
shut
though.
this one down?
Well, and I can't even buy into that because obviously
No,
the
of course.
current regimes of
Yeah,
45 years ago and all, you know what I mean.
just go with my joke. Eat, Mike.
All right, listen, I want to punch David Zasloff in the face. Is that enough for you?
There you go.
But we're going to table here's why I say I want to table this. I really do want to detail the plot beats, the writing beats, the scene by scene. I want to scene by scene this movie sometime. Like, and I don't want to do a watch along because I want to be able to talk over it and talk about it.
Yeah.
I want to scene by scene this movie. This is not that day. Let's say that he was an asshole on set. He gets a pass. However, Bill Murray will get the point for 91. Not only, even though they're both assholes on set, they both get asshole points. But as far as who gets the point for the year, Bill Murray has a movie some people consider a classic, and it made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Chevy Chase has this movie, which is just a incredible bomb, almost derails him. He has a cameo, by the way, in LA Story with Steve Martin, but we are once again not counting uncredited cameos. Bill Murray cameoed in Little Shop of Horrors, but it was a credited, publicized cameo. Uncredited cameo for Chevy Chase in LA Story. He gets no further mentions on it.
Sure.
But that's 1991. What a bizarre year.
Yeah.
I didn't like talking about that year. I did not enjoy that year because I didn't like the Bill Murray movie and he was an asshole. And then I am fascinated with a bad movie with Chevy Chase and he was an asshole. I did not enjoy talking about 1991 just
yeah. Well, so 92 is pretty one-sided, so
it is, and it's
weirdly one.
Yeah, it's so Bill Murray takes another year off in 1992 after the hit. He has a real pattern. Have you noticed that? Where he has a big hit and he takes a year off. So, good for him. But he takes a year off in 92, which means Chevy is going to get a point for Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which, my goodness, this is a John Carpenter movie and a rare non-horror John Carpenter movie. And I need to take a minute. I'm still worked up about 1991. I need to take a minute to gather my thoughts. Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Have you ever had a movie that when you're a kid, you insist you like it? Because it has everything that you would like. So you insist you like it. You like this movie. I'd watch that movie. I'm 9 years old. I want to watch this movie. It has these people I like and an idea I like. And I'm going to put this movie on. And then you realize that you never liked this movie and you were just being like a stubborn kid about something. Memoirs of an Invisible Man is that for me. I like Chevy Chase. I like monster movies. I like John Carter. I like these things. This movie's terrible. This was a bad movie. This movie was another horrific bomb, and this one cannot be excused. This one is put on Chevy Chase.
Yep.
We talked about the bizarre dog movie Chevy Chase did in the 80s, how it's weird that he took this big swing where he gets transplanted into a dog, and it's just almost like a bizarre person-to-person comedy where he's also Benji. There's no one trying to kill him, reuse him into this. This, however, is what I think that movie would have been. He accidentally gets turned into an invisible man, and he has to escape the CIA because they want to use him as a secret agent or experiment on him. But he's also trying to have a love interest with Daryl Hannah. And this movie is what that movie could have been regarding the cliche plot choices.
Yeah.
The one good thing that came out of this movie is that John Carpenter met Sam Neill, who is in this movie and is one of the better parts of this movie as an actor, because I love Sam Neill. He's the lead guy in Jurassic Park, for anyone that doesn't know who Sam Neill is. But John Carpenter meeting Sam Neill leads to one of my favorite underrated John Carpenter movies, In the Mouth of Madness. Sam Neill is fucking fantastic in The Mouth of Madness. They met on this movie, wanted to work together again after this movie without Chevy Chase around, and they made In the Mouth of Madness together. And that movie fucking slaps. Yeah. So if anything, we get In the Mouth of Madness because of this movie. And that's a great legacy to have. Doesn't do anything for Chevy Chase. He was terrible in this movie. Everybody hates him, and it's a horrific bomb. And if you want to give you credit, also released by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is really in the release a bomb by Chevy Chase business in the early 90s. So So what do you have to say about memoirs of an Invisible Man?
Nothing good necessarily from the actual movie. And I think we briefly went on how did it actually happen. A errant, lab worker spilled coffee on a computer console, which made the lab blow up, but not blow up, and that's why. And because he was taking a nap because he couldn't deal with how boring the presentation was, he went somewhere else, and then he woke up invisible. That was
Which I would like to note, and I'd read this before, and it's so ridiculous to me that the original writer, that Chevy Chase had signed on for the script, but then he had the script reworked because he found it too comedic. He wanted to do something more serious with adventure. One of those fucking moments where a comedy guy gets his head up his ass.
Yep.
This is the quote. It was Clark Griswold becoming invisible, and so he wanted to change that. Why? That sounds great. Let's do Clark Griswold becoming invisible.
I mean, did you see? This was originally William Goldman signed on for the script with Ivan Reitman attached to direct.
Yes.
Give me that right now.
I would take that with Chevy Chase in the lead.
Absolutely.
If you get him to write, Ivan Reitman's directing in 1991, and this, by the way, they were all attached in the late 80s. But Chevy Chase turned this into a vanity project. He wanted this to bridge him out of comedy. He got a comedy script because that was a script that was available to him, and he wanted to make it not funny.
Sure.
And then Reitman dropped out. The studio backed Chevy Chase instead of Ivan Reitman because Reitman wanted to proceed with the funny script. Chevy Chase didn't want to do the funny script. And Warner Brothers, maybe you're right. Maybe it's a historical Warner Brothers thing. Maybe what I just said was wrong because Warner Brothers backed Chevy Chase instead of Ivan Reitman and let him rework the script to be not funny. And I'm just like, what the fuck are we doing? And here's the thing. That's why John Carpenter got hired. Because, he's a horror director, had been trying to branch out himself out of horror, made a lot of good action movies and tense movies. He may have had some dark comedy or darker moments, but he wasn't a comedy director. So that's how, he got hired. But my goodness, what a misfire. What a misfire.
Did you see some of the stuff from the making of this too? I
just wanted to read a John Carpenter quote.
Yeah, go for it.
I love John Carpenter, and also we've mentioned this on the show before. Or did I just talk to you about it in private? I don't know. I'll say it again. Here's a trivia bit you may have heard before, or an anecdote you may have heard before. John Carpenter has stopped directing years ago. He will license his movies out to anyone that wants to license out one of his movies. Because all he wants to do is make music and play video games and sit around and smoke pot. It's great. John Carpenter, he did. We talked about the new Halloween because he did the music for that movie happily. He actually composed the music for the Halloween remake happily. Had nothing to do with the direction of it because he does video game live streams. He loves it. He got over filmmaking a long time ago, and this movie had a lot to do with it. It gave me a chance. This is a quote from John Carpenter. It gave me a chance to make a quasi-serious movie. But Chevy Chase, Sam Neill, who I love and had a long-time friendship with, talking about Sam Neill, and Warner Brothers, I worked for them, and I had said at the time it was pleasant. Oh, I think I had that part. No, it wasn't pleasant at all. I'm lying to you. It was a horror show. I wanted to quit the business after that movie. God, I don't want to talk about why. But let's just say there were personalities on that film. He who shall not be named needs to be killed. No, that's terrible. No, he needs to be set on fire. No, it's fine. I survived it. By the way, I'd like to know, in that sentence, he said, Sam Neill, I love and have had a long-time friendship with. And then he went, he who shall not be named, he needs to be killed. Clearly Chevy Chase. My goodness. And this is Chevy Chase burning through his Hollywood cachet, goodwill, whatever. It's rough, right?
I will say, and not necessarily Chevy related, but somewhat related to what you just said about John Carpenter. So do you know who did do the music for this movie?
No, I missed. Who did it?
Shirley Walker, who is responsible for the Batman series.
Oh, wait, but for the day-to-day score, because they used the Danny Elfman score for
correct. But she always worked with him, and so they did a lot of co-composing together. So,
no, I've heard of her. It took me a minute to heard her name. She did all the really classic. Yes, she did all the classic '90s DC series. That's great because she also did Superman. That's fantastic. I love that. Oh my gosh. She also did the first 3 Final Destination movies. I love those. That's fantastic. Oh, and True Lies. Man,
There
she's
you
doing
go.
great.
She's killing
Man,
it.
she's crushing it. Good for her. Did she die? Why did she stop working? She died in 2006 at 61. That's young. That's too bad for her. It's too bad for her. What am I saying? Oh, she died. That's too bad for her. Good Lord.
That's factual.
I mean, I'm not wrong, but
yes.
what a dumb thing to say out of me. So anyway, unfortunately, because Bill Murray doesn't get a point, I would love to give neither of them a point for this year, frankly. But that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Not how it works. We're gonna follow our own rules. So
while we would like someone to earn it, he did make a movie.
So Bill Murray gets 90. Bill Murray gets 91. Unfortunately, Chevy Chase gets 92. I want to put like a fucking, I'll go your sports reference. Can I put an asterisk next to that one? For fuck's sake. It's in the record books. And if he were to somehow come out ahead, he won't. I can already tell.
It's that same analogy I made last week where you got 2 basketball teams and one shoots 30% from the field and one shoots 28%. And the team that shot 30%, which is very bad, still wins,
So it's interesting because this is where things start to you had mentioned before we started recording that there wasn't as much in this decade to talk about. And it's so funny because you're right amount of movies wise, but I think we've also dived into choice wise. There was a lot to talk about. So we go to 93, and if we're talking pivoting, we say we don't give uncredited cameos. That's Hero. I don't even remember him being the news director. Uncredited? I can't talk today. Uncredited in the 1992 movie Hero with Dustin Hoffman, Gina Davis, and Andy Garcia. I don't remember. I remember that movie for some reason. Like, was that movie a bomb? Why do I remember that movie? Or was it just a really big deal and that's why I remember it?
Yeah, I think the names, I don't remember why but
like, I'm about
to
look it up, but why do I remember the movie Hero from 1993 or 1992? 92. Why do I remember the movie Hero?
Is that the one where like Dustin Hoffman's the actual hero and Andy Garcia is like the
fake hero? Correct.
And
the reporter I think is Gina Davis, who figures out that it was really Dustin Hoffman who saved the people, etc., etc. I really just want to look up the box office here. That's why I remember it. It was also a bomb. Columbia Pictures lost $25 million on that movie.
There you go.
It was a $67 million movie that grossed $19 million with a lot of big names. Boy, we're hitting a lot of bombs in this era. Which, by the way, uncredited Chevy Chase cameo. I bet Hollywood still noticed he was in it when it lost $25 million.
Hey, the bombs continue. All right. Let's blame Chevy.
That said, he doesn't get a point, yay or nay, for that, but he does get a point for cameoing as himself in Last Action Hero, which you may recall. He gets a
credit. I wouldn't call it a point because when he's going up against
that's what I mean. He gets a credit. Let's talk points in a second, but yes, he gets a credit, not a point. And here's the thing: the Last Action Hero is not a bomb, but it famously came up against Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And it did very poorly. Wait, are we still in 92 or 93? We're 92 or 93?
93.
We're 93. I keep getting confused on the years. I'm sorry. So 93 is Last Action Hero. That's all Chevy does. And much like I could have tried to argue Bill Murray did something in 86 where he had a famous cameo, can we argue it as a point? Technically, I could make that argument, but it also isn't a great cameo. It barely exists. And this movie is famous for coming up against Jurassic Park and not making the amount of money it should have made in their minds. It did not bomb, but it had an $85 million budget because this is Arnold Schwarzenegger coming off of Terminator 2, which is massive. And it's him making a big, and people would be like, what a weird choice. He had already been making comedy action. He had done Twins and Kindergarten Cop. So for Arnold Schwarzenegger to make a comedy action movie the year after Terminator 2, this is a big fucking deal, right? They're hitting the merchandising. They're hitting everything about it. It makes $137 million, which is a profit, but it was supposed to make all the money.
Yeah.
But Jurassic Park made all the money. That's the difference.
Deservedly so.
Exactly. It had a budget. So this is what's great about this. Jurassic Park had a budget of $63 million, which is $20 million less than Last Action Hero. And I'm not sure if this is worldwide gross after re-releases included or worldwide gross at the time. But I'm going to say it's the worldwide gross flat. I don't know if this includes re-releases, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But let's take Last Action Hero's $85 million budget with $137 million worldwide box office. That's nice. You made a profit. I'm sorry you didn't make the money you were supposed to make. Jurassic Park had a $63 million budget and has a worldwide gross of $1 billion.
Yeah.
So, listen, there's probably re-releases included in that, but it's really funny to put that number up against it. So, so if we'd flipped it, let's flip the script for a second and say Chevy Chase cameoed in Jurassic Park. Let's set aside what he do. He's a small role, right?
Yep.
He's
doesn't matter to me.
Right. I was going to say, and that movie grosses $1 billion. Would it count? Doesn't matter? Okay.
Not compared to not what he's going against.
Okay.
Not what Bill Murray has, yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask if I love Groundhog Day. That's Bill Murray's 1993. And I've never seen Mad Dog and Glory. He's in it with Robert De Niro and Uma Thurman.
I haven't either, but I don't think it matters. I
don't think it matters because Bill Murray does an all-timer in Groundhog Day. But I was going to say, could you say, what if it was a well-remembered cameo in a $1 billion movie? Would you give him any argument?
Chevy would have to be Jeff Goldblum.
Okay, for it
to be, because that's how good Bill Murray is in Groundhog Day. Like, it is the ultimate charming movie, but it's his performance that lends itself to it's his transformation throughout the movie, throughout the premise, that sells the whole movie. Like,
I see.
It doesn't. I don't think it works with different people in his role.
I absolutely agree everything you're saying, but for the sake of discussion,
sure,
and it's a hypothetical, I wanted to say, is there anything?
And that's why I went to it. He would have to be, if he was, I don't think a cameo, but I think if he's a secondary character,
he would have been in a discussion for the year.
Correct.
With a movie that made bank.
I would listen to it. I would listen to that argument, but just as a cameo in a movie that made some money versus a virtuoso performance in a great movie,
I think
that wins.
And that's I guess I kind of wanted to know, what would he have had to have done to even be in the conversation this year? So, but my goodness, Groundhog Day. I rarely use the term perfect film. Perfect film.
I think Ebert gave it 4 stars, right?
Tortured behind the scenes.
Again?
This movie is the reason we didn't get a Ghostbusters 3, because Harold Ramis and Bill Murray had a massive falling out on set.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because now we've hit the point where he's even getting into arguments and falling out with the people that he's been working with. Because Bill Murray didn't want it to be, say it with me, as funny as it was. He wanted to be taken more seriously. God, would you people stop with this shit? He wanted it to be a darker, twisted, but meanwhile, Harold Ramis wanted to make a comedy. So they butt up against each other. They whatever it is, it comes out in the wash on screen with a perfect film.
Yeah.
However, it's a shame that this movie ruins their relationship. And listen, there's a famous story that they reconciled before he died. Like, Harold Ramis wasn't able to talk as much or verbalize, but he was still conscious, and they had to sit down. And before Harold Ramis died, when he wasn't well, Bill Murray came over and made a mea culpa.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice. Why didn't you do it 20 years sooner, Bill? Why did you hold a grudge for 20 years until the man was dying to do this? When you made such magic together every time you got together, be it acting or writing or directing, why'd you hold the fucking grudge for 20 fucking years? Over a perfect movie, by the way. You were angry over a perfect movie and your arguments behind it. I don't know what to say. And listen, I would note that they buried the hatchet there. They apparently did start the thawing of their relationship in 2009, where the excellent Ghostbusters video game came out that was remastered in 2021 and had a re-release. So if you want what is, and I'm going to take a tangent here, if you want what could have, should have, and kind of is Ghostbusters 3, play the Ghostbusters video game that got all four of them to act, because Harold Ramis did it before he had his stroke and before he got sick. And all four of them are in it. It's fun. I wish there were more cutscenes and dialogue because it's great. They even got Bill Murray to do it. And the parts he's in it is amazing. You can tell they run out of money because the ending is very abrupt, and they clearly had them voice an ending that they didn't have the money to animate, because they play the voices over the credits of what should be an animated scene.
Oh, okay.
And so the game clearly ran out of money, but it's so fun and so charming. And it has one of my favorite latter day Bill Murray stories, where he was on Letterman and he had just recorded like a bunch of shit with them. And he's like, it was a really fun day. We were feeling the vibes. And I was really enjoying Ghostbusters again in that moment because it brought us all together. And these people caught me whistling the Ghostbusters theme as I was leaving the studio. And he was like, it was so funny because I hadn't thought about Ghostbusters in 15 years, but these people saw me whistling Ghostbusters and they looked at me like, oh, get over it. Like, really? And they looked at me like, time to move on. And he was like, no, it's been 15 years. This is the first time I've thought. He was like, I just had this look of, God damn it, I got caught. And I was like, that's really funny. So sorry for the tangent. We'll go back to 1993. But it all ties into that's his and his relationship with Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because let's talk about the movie. Let's set that aside. We have spent 3 years of discussion talking about arguments and anger and bombs and movies. We know all of that now, right? We get it now. Let's set aside that they were angry at each other and they had the falling out. Let's please now talk about this movie. Randy, tell me about your love for this movie, why this movie works. Give me something positive, happy, and fun. I'm tired. I need something nice.
I mean, it's modern. It's a Wonderful Life. It's Capra-esque. It just with a modern-ish at the time, right? Modern, 1990, whatever, 3. And it has this kind of wonderful take on, and it's a similar arc to him and Scrooge, right? I mean, so it's a similar idea. The selfish person goes on a journey to discover how they can see that there's other people in the world and the way to get themselves. And that's the analogy there, right? To break yourself out of the rut, you need to give of yourself to other people. Like I think that's the underlying message. And the way to get there is kind of fun. Like the way to kind of, what's the definition of insanity, right? Is doing the same thing over and over again. And so this tests kind of the limits of Bill Murray's psyche, or his character, Phil's character, to go, wait a minute, what am I doing here? What can I take advantage? And I mean, realizing the circumstance that he's been put into, how he can use that to his own benefit, and then to come to the realization that, again, by giving to others is the way through it, not necessarily just saying, I've been given this opportunity to make myself immortal, invincible, can learn and do as much as I can do, but when I wake up tomorrow, it's going to be the same day again, which is, I always thought was an interesting thing, that they made that choice to say that he still had the awareness of it. I guess that's the whole point, right? Is that he can make the change the next time for the better. But I always thought that was one minor kind of flaw in the whole thought of the time loop aspect of it, is that how would he continue to know what he had known? Because he still has the same knowledge. Or I mean, I almost viewed it as he's like almost like erased when he wakes up again. But
he is not, though. That's how he keeps his.
No. I mean, that's how it works. I thought from a time loop standpoint, would it affect that way? I just always thought it was an interesting take on it, but it works really well. that's my take on it. Is it's just there are some very funny components of him being caught in this scenario, and from the dark aspect where he tries to kill himself in about 100 different ways, and to the point where he uses it to his advantage with, the one woman he meets, for Anne, or the interactions with Ned Ryerson, or there's a lot of great kind of repeat things that. And using, I think, the alarm clock with "I got you, babe" is just this great kind of Pavlovian tick to it also, so that that, all right, we're back where we started. Now where are we going? And I think that's kind of fun, because you say Phil has to deal with the fact that he's encountering this day again, but what's he going to do with that?
And I would like to, just because we've been so negative and there's been so many bad things, I would like to give one positive. I want to have a little bit more discussion on the film, but I would like to give one positive Bill Murray thing out of this. At one point, Bill Murray did, even though they didn't shoot the movie in actually Punxsutawney, he agreed to go be the Grand Marshal one year for Groundhog Day. And the people of Punxsutawney said Bill Murray is very fun, very genuine, and he was signing autographs and was nice to everybody.
Oh, good.
So can we just have a moment? So I want to ask you a question, and I don't know if you've done your research and if you've already looked up this trivia. Gut reaction, if you haven't looked it up, how long was Phil in the time loop?
Ooh. I haven't done the research.
I have two answers. I have one from someone that actually tried to calculate it, and one from what Harold Ramis thinks, but I want your guess first.
I'm going to guess. So, because I was trying to think about that, and my key to all of this, and what I'm always thinking of, is how quick would it take him to become that fluent or that performative in the piano? Like that is my
That's
one thing.
Exactly what these people used to.
So I mean, I'm putting that at least I would say 6 to 8 months, but I don't know exactly what it is.
And every day, constant use. It's doing every single day. So do you have a guess? What you're saying, 6 to 8 months total?
Yes.
Oh my, you are vastly under. I thought you just meant to learn the piano. You are vastly underestimating. Think about all the other things he did. The ice sculpting, the things, all this. You're just giving him the piano. I would say 6 to 8 months for the piano.
Okay.
Minimum. So do you want, which guess you want first? The people who tried to, whatculture.com a couple of years ago, and I remember this, and it made the viral rounds, put out what they estimated. But then Harold Ramis also said what was in the original script, and he still thinks it's true.
Really? Okay.
Even though not as many of them were shown. He just thinks that a lot more happened that we didn't see.
I mean, if you figure, I'm just, I haven't not watched it in a couple of years. Right? So let's say he masters, let's say he masters 12 different things.
Yep.
So then if I take that and I go 6 to 8 months per, so you're looking at what that's, all right. So you go probably 5 years.
Okay. All right.
Something like that.
So Harold Ramis thought that it was 10 years.
Okay.
Just simply based on everything. However, whatculture.com thinks it is 33 years and 350 days.
Wow. It's almost 34. Wow. Okay.
Yes. So they looked at the idea.
A lot of research.
So they looked at it at the idea that it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in anything. And they looked at things like French poetry, ice sculpting, piano. And then there's also gesture days, like the day he spent just trying to save a child, the day he just did the Heimlich maneuver, the day he got the WrestleMania tickets. So they think that it was over 30 years. Harold Ramis says in the original script, and probably still accurate, that it was a little over 10 years of the same day.
Interesting.
So,
wow.
So fascinating reasoning. But that's 1993, obviously a point for Bill Murray.
Yep.
So I want to, not just for the sake of time, but because I feel like some of these things run together over the next couple of years. I want to talk about a concept we talked about last week, where I feel like growing up and living through this, and it may not be remembered as much now, there was a perception, and tell me if I'm wrong, there was a perception that both Chevy Chase and Bill Murray's careers died in the mid-90s. I remember a Cracked magazine that had Cracked was the alternative to Mad. where there was a whole joke about Bill Murray's career dying around the time of Groundhog Day and like after Groundhog Day, not doing this and that. And if you look at Chevy Chase's IMDb, and I'm not just doing the speed run, but I want to have this discussion. 1994 is Cops and Robertsons, which is another bomb with Jack Palance.
Yep.
1995, I need to look up the box office, is when he's in Man of the House with Jonathan Taylor Thomas, which is like a JTT's big film breakout after
Home
with Farrah
Improvement.
Fawcett as the mom after Home Improvement. Exactly. So that's 95. And then he doesn't do a movie in 96. We're going to stop before 97. Okay. Because 97 is an important year for both of them. I want to then dial to Bill Murray's 94, which is Ed Wood. And he's a good co-star in part in Ed Wood. I fucking love Ed Wood. He doesn't make a movie in 95. And then in 96, he makes the one movie that could qualify as like the bomb, it's a joke. He makes the elephant movie Larger Than Life, which incidentally, I was convinced his elephant movie was Operation Dumbo Drop. No, that's the one with Ray Liotta. But then he also makes a well-regarded co-star, not cameo, he's a co-star in Space Jam. And I'm getting to the other one.
Well,
no.
You got the other way around. He's barely in Space Jam.
I disagree. He is a bridge. He's in the beginning playing golf with Michael Jordan. He's in the middle figuring out with Wayne Knight what's going on. Then he shows up at the end as the guy in the resolution.
I forgot he was in the middle. Okay, all right.
And then at the end, he's in the resolution. He's the one that shows up to make sure they have enough players for the team.
Okay.
Bill Murray is a proper co-star in Space Jam to me, and I stand by this. But regardless, that movie made bank. I know it's not his movie, but he's well regarded in it, right? He is a fun part in a well-made, profitable movie. Sure. But then he is also motherfucking Ernie McCracken in Kingpin, right? My point being, the perception of both of these actors is that they both fell off in the mid-90s. They had nothing going until they saved their careers at one point with new ideas. Bill Murray was never falling off. If he had a point with the Elephant movie, that same year he had Space Jam and Kingpin. He took a year off in 95. He did Ed Wood in 94. Was Mad Dog and Glory a bomb? I think so. I'm not even going to look at it. He gets the point for Groundhog Day, right? In 93. Why is there a perception Bill Murray's career was dying? Tell me why that perception existed. Because I don't understand it looking at his IMDb.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is that, so there wasn't anything in 95, right?
And then he wasn't the lead in 96.
Well, and then he was in Ed Wood, but like you have to kind of be reminded, right? Like, I mean, it's just, like just because that's such a period piece and everything is within a character and things like that. It's not necessarily what we had come to think of Bill Murray and his performance, right? Like in terms of what he's doing in comedic roles where he's kind of that tour de force. He's more involving himself, which is a look into the future of what he's trying to do as a dramatic actor. I mean, comedic, but Ed Wood is sort of a comedy drama, but whatever you want to call it.
It's a very tongue-in-cheek drama type thing. Yep. Okay, so and now here's my question then. Is it because I just looked up the box office, and this is fair, he has in 96, he has Larger Than Life. And we're going to dial back and rank the years. I just want to, this point is all one big thing. In Larger Than Life, the Elephant movie, which I can say I saw in the theater because I loved Bill Murray in the 90s. I'm one of the few people. $30 million budget, $8 million box office. Okay. So that's pretty bad. And then, to be fair, he then makes, in 97, the next year, before the resurgence really starts. Maybe I'm seeing it now as I talk about it. But The Man Who Knew Too Little, the 97 spy comedy, Bill Murray. Okay, maybe I'm getting it now. $20 million budget, $13 million gross. So he has two very bad bombs in 96 and 97. But he's in Ed Wood, he's in Space Jam, he's in Kingpin, and I don't know what to tell you. To me, is it because his two leads bomb and his other ones don't? Is that where I'm getting it now? Now that I'm talking it through, is that where it's at? Because I see it and I don't see a bad career, but I see two lead movies that bombed.
And I think this is also the time frame of what was happening in Hollywood, in the movie industry, right? Where they were given, I felt like a lot of things were given opportunities, whether it was indie films or just, this is just talking The Man Who Knew Too Little. Like there were opportunities for things that were a little bit different. This was also like the Coen brothers were doing more things that were way more kind of dark, more noir type stuff. So that was being introduced, but then at the same time, there was still a little bit of hunger for when was Spy Hard? Like, not that Spy Hard was a good movie, but
No, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
that appetite was there. So even though it didn't do well, that was still. I think as we look at it, you're absolutely right that Bill Murray's kind of perception of falling off is a little bit unfounded. It just
Right.
because it wasn't as dynamic as other 3-year runs in his career doesn't mean that he was working.
Exactly.
And some of his movies were making money and some of them weren't. I mean, I think that Bigger and McCracken is almost underrated. I mean, he's so good in that movie, and it easily steals that movie. I mean, he's just a great component of that movie. And a lot of these performances are not, it's maybe the movies weren't great, but not necessarily indicative of what he was doing.
I agree. And so I want to dial back, and we're kind of going to do some speed rounds before we hit the end of the 90s here.
Sure.
So first off, what we gloss over in 93 is also when Chevy Chase has the famously disastrous Chevy Chase show. We're not going to get more into that here, but it was the attempt to be Johnny. It was 93 because Carson was over, and they're like, we can compete with the Tonight Show now. Jay Leno is vulnerable. His ratings weren't great out of the gate. Letterman's going to CBS. We're going to do the Chevy Chase show. Famously canceled after 8 episodes. One of the worst TV disasters of all time. Chevy Chase's star is pretty fucking bad in the 90s. He's had these bombs. He has one of the most famous TV show cancellations of all time. He also then follows up the Chevy Chase show with 1994's Cops and Robertsons, which had it was bad. It was bad. It's a bad movie. It was Jack Palance trying to capitalize off of City Slickers.
Yep.
It only made $11 million. I can't find a budget, but I guarantee you an $11 million gross is probably a bomb. Especially with Jack Palance, Chevy Chase in that era, there's no way it made money.
And the way studios were throwing money at stuff around that time.
Yes,
for sure.
Exactly. So I can't find it, but that's a bomb. So my question then, to me then, here's my question, right? They both did one thing in 94. Chevy Chase does Cops and Robertsons where he's a lead, but it's a bomb.
Yep.
Bill Murray does Ed Wood where it's a hit and well-regarded, but he is not the draw. Who gets the point?
I mean, I go on better movie.
Me too. I go Ed Wood, but I just wanted to I didn't want to just say it immediately, but to me, it's very much a Bill Murray year. Simply because and it's not just a cameo. He has a very good, interesting performance in that film. If you guys haven't seen Ed Wood, fucking great movie. It's peak mid-90s Tim Burton before he found the Tim Burton style that he got stuck in for the last 30 years. It's when he was still trying stuff. It's a great movie. And it's before Johnny Depp became obnoxious. Johnny Depp is still trying stuff.
before both of them became obnoxious. So
Exactly. So funny thing, Chevy Chase gets a default point. He's been dying. He gets a default point for 95. But the thing is, the movie made money. Chevy Chase, but I don't think it made money because of Chevy Chase.
No, that was a JTT ploy.
JTT, at the height of JTT, doing Chevy Chase, Farrah Fawcett, George Wendt, and Jonathan Taylor Thomas doing teen heartthrob Jonathan Taylor Thomas stuff.
Oh yeah.
And listen, it's a fine movie. It's fine. It's fine. I don't know what to fucking tell you.
Yeah.
Was Buena Vista? It is. This is I say it's a Disney movie, but it's like a Disney TV movie. It's a Disney Channel movie they put in theaters. That's what it is.
Harmless. Serves its audience.
Harmless, fun, and made about $20 million on a budget of box office 40, budget 22. Yep. So at least the year he gets the default point, he wasn't in a fucking bomb, right? What can I say?
Yes, I don't know if he earned it, but
he didn't earn it, but
he didn't not earn it.
There it is. And based on our speed running, let me get back to, I lost the Chevy Chase IMDb, damn it.
So nothing for 96. So this makes 96 pretty easy. So
And 96 we already talked about. Even
Yep.
if he didn't have the bomb
I don't
in
think he's
Larger
going to
Than
beat
Life
him.
and Space Jam, he has fucking Ernie McCracken. He's
Yep.
Kingpin. He's amazing in Kingpin. Do we need to hit anything else on Kingpin? I know we speed ran a few years to get this moving, but it's a well versed one.
It is. I would probably put it second best Farrelly Brothers movie. Would you go there?
I actually like it better than Something About Mary. I would
Okay.
put it less. So I love Kingpin. And they
I,
did
I
it,
do.
but
I do too. I just think there's something to be said about Something About Mary introducing that to the.
oh no, that is a bigger movie. I mean, a culturally relevant movie. Everything about Something About Mary matters more as a film and is a very funny movie, but I personally like Kingpin more.
Kingpin, very, very funny. So,
Yes.
just some great, really great performances from everybody. Woody's great. Randy Quaid's great. Yeah,
I
just
have been slandering Randy Quaid in a lot of things that
Yeah.
and talking about him. He's fantastic in Kingpin. I
Yeah.
like Randy Quaid in Kingpin quite a
absolutely.
bit before he lost his fucking mind. So 97, an interesting year. And I'll tell you right off the bat, I give it to Chevy Chase. I don't have to navigate this because Bill Murray has the movie we already mentioned, Man Who Knew Too Little.
Mhm.
Uninspired spy comedy. I don't know what he was going for, and it bombs. Vegas Vacation comes out in 97, the last of the original Vacation movies. And, you know, we already said last week, and I'm going to get into it, I like this movie important. I like Christmas Vacation. Please don't murder me. I love Vegas Vacation. It's just fun. It is not a great movie, but it has so much charm and so many fun bits. It is not as good a movie as Christmas Vacation. If you were to look at Christmas Vacation as a film, but personally, I just think it's so fun. I like Vegas Vacation.
It's a great return to the Griswolds, you know, like it just,
Yes.
and it's even with the ongoing joke of, you know, the kids are different or whatever. Ethan Embry, really good choice, I think. In that,
he's great.
He's really,
great.
really good in that.
I put a dollar in a car. Put a dollar in a car. Put a dollar in a car. I quote that to this day. If I go to a casino or I gamble or I go to Vegas and I see one of those cars on display, I hope the person I'm with knows what I'm talking about because I'll see one and I go, put a dollar in a car. Put a dollar in a car. It's my fault.
You know
it's my problem.
You know what's fascinating? Look at that side by side is that like IMDb, like the aggregate of, and granted that's, you know, user internet reviews as well, but is actually below Man Who Knew Too Little. It's got a like 6.6 out of 10, whereas Vegas Vacation is 5.9 out of 10, which seems low for Vegas Vacation. I mean, it's fun. Like it is not by no means is it rethinking the
You're giving
cinematic
me the
landscape, but it's a lot of fun.
But does it? I cut you off. I'm sorry. It's a bad habit. I'm rude. It's giving the stars, but it tells you how many people voted, right? Does it actually say the vote amount?
Oh, does it? You know,
because in my mind, it's a higher vote or a higher star with much less votes to Vegas Vacation that probably has way more votes averaging out.
Look at that.
You know what I mean?
That's excellent.
That's my gut reaction on that. But while you look that up, I will hit you with the box office for Vegas Vacation, which was a disappointment, but was not a money loser.
Yeah, you're right. By about 20,000 less.
There you go. So I think it averages out to where more people probably are voting. But yeah. So rock the vote, kids. So box office for Vegas Vacation, it makes $11 million, which is a disappointment for a vacation movie, a return to form, et cetera, et cetera. People are disappointed. It has a very bad Rotten Tomatoes score of 15%. Critics hated this movie.
That bad? Wow. Okay.
Yes. Metacritic, it's only got a 20 out of 100 of 10 people who bothered.
Because it's not a lot of the original people, right? Like the original like production.
No, it is not done by
So-
like a National Lampoon. It's also the only vacation movie of the original run to not say National Lampoon's whatever vacation. It is released as Vegas Vacation, not National Lampoon's Vegas Vacation. The other three have the National Lampoon branding.
Right.
So, and it also is the only one that I think John Hughes had nothing to do with. So maybe that's why there's a little less heart. But I think it's fun. I think it's good. And I'm happy, unless you give me an argument, to give Chevy Chase 1997.
No arguments here.
Cool.
Yep.
So let's look at 1998 for both of them.
It's nice to see him earn one because he hadn't really done that yet.
Right.
This
Like
decade.
you could maybe say 95, but it wasn't an earn. It was, at least it was a profit, you know?
Yeah. So Chevy in 98 goes Dirty Work. He's the Dr. who keeps losing like
So
limbs and because he has a gambling problem,
what's great about
which is
this,
a very funny character.
I
But
love him in that movie. He's very good.
he's not going to beat the other one.
I disagree. I disagree. I would actually give Chevy Dirty Work because of how much I love Dirty Work than I would.
I like both movies that Bill Murray's in, though. That's where I would put.
So this is the thing. Wild Things to me, he's fine in, and I think the only thing here's the thing. I've seen Wild Things a lot. Let me rephrase
Yep.
that. I've seen these 2 scenes of Wild Things a lot. Let me rephrase that. From when I was about 17 to maybe now.
God.
I've seen these 2 scenes of Wild Things a lot. Wow, and can I tell you?
Was Bill Murray in either of them?
No, he's not. And if you were to extend a 3rd scene of Wild Things, he's not in that one either. So,
for those who haven't seen the movie, just watch it and you'll understand very quickly.
Yeah. Haven't seen. Don't know he's in it. Remember him. I know he got. I think he got acclaim for it. And without doing research, he did 3 movies. I was going to tell you, I thought Rushmore was 99. Bill Murray's going to get the point.
I don't even know what Friends Like These, I'll be honest.
That's the one I thought you were talking about. That's the one I thought.
No, I was talking Rushmore. If I was doing Rushmore and Wild Things.
I was convinced until this moment Rushmore was 99. So yeah, Bill Murray's going to get the point for 98.
Yep.
If nothing else, just for that's the movie that everyone said was his big comeback. Oh my God, we love him. Because he also did Wild Things. I don't know with Friends Like These, whatever. Wild Things, all joking aside, I know he was well regarded in that movie. And that movie was interestingly received because of the scenes we're joking about. But Rushmore is also a massive smash hit. It puts Wes Anderson on the map. It puts Jason Schwartzman on the map. It makes Bill Murray we want to cast him in everything again type of role. Yes, he's obviously going to get it.
In a different kind of idea, right? And updated, more dignified, for lack of a better term. Not dignified, but appearing dignified, but then also kind of an asshole. It's great.
I would like to note that he is very good in this movie. He's so good in this movie and I don't want to tip you off because I'm trying to find my words here. And because this isn't a hilariously vitriolic one like something else. I do not like Wes Anderson movies generally.
Yeah.
And I really don't like Jason Schwartzman movies. I do not like Jason Schwartzman when he is on screen. The only time I have ever liked a Jason Schwartzman role or movie is Scott Pilgrim, where he is designed to play a character you hate. And I don't like, and I guess he's kind of designed that in this one to a degree too. I don't know. I haven't watched Rushmore in a long time. I do agree that it is worth the point. It is worth the laudits. It is worth the careers people got from it. I am in no way downplaying what it became, what it led to, what it meant. I don't like Wes Anderson. I don't like this movie. I'm sorry. But it is not a comedy, let's argue about it one. I don't know what to tell you. It's not my style. It's not my vibe. I like Life Aquatic to some degree when we get into the early 2000s. I love the cast in that one. I think Bill Murray's great. Wes Anderson, I don't think he's ever better than Life Aquatic for my money. I've said my piece. Randy, tell me all about Rushmore, why it matters, why you like it, what it does for everybody moving forward. Take the floor, because I'm not going to give you anything good here.
I would say Rushmore for the most part, we already sort of talked about it, right? It brought back Bill Murray in a different light. Like it was the parts that we remembered and we liked, but in a different packaging and a different take on it. So and like I said, to say even more dignified isn't right. It's just an older version. Like the guy who can't necessarily all the shtick from the early 80s to mid 80s Bill Murray, it doesn't work anymore, but he found a way to have that kind of not asshole-ish, but just that type of comedic aspect is able to still come through, but it's in a different type of character. I think that's why everybody loved it, because it's like, okay, he's sort of reinvented himself as he's come back, which is really, really fun and cool. And he does a million things, right? With not a million, but
No,
several things with Wes Anderson, right?
he comes back big. I know a lot of people love Royal Tenenbaums. Again, not my speed. I really do genuinely enjoy Life Aquatic. Like, you know how like you can have filmmakers you don't like, but sometimes everybody gets one, as it were. I like Life Aquatic, but and then he's in Darjeeling Limited. He's in. He does a voice in Fantastic Mr. Fox, Moonrise Kingdom. He does a metric fuck ton of Wes Anderson movies moving forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and as it goes further and further, I really liked Royal Tenenbaums. I don't know why. That was just because it's when something is that, I don't want to say over the top, but but then as it got further, like I liked Life Aquatic, but not as much as Royal Tenenbaums, and then the rest of them, Fantastic Mr. Fox, I liked, but the other ones, I'm not in. I'm with you, man. I'm not really in on Moonrise Kingdom, Grand Budapest Hotel. I know people love those movies, but man,
Wes Anderson has a cult of personality type thing. People who love him love him.
It's like, I get it, you're quirky, but like, like, can we have some sort of thing other than, hey, this is because it's quirky?
No, I have nothing else to add. No, you're right. Very well said. So I have nothing else for 98. But obviously Bill Murray gets the point, because whatever else I think of a lot of Wes Anderson stuff, I'm not blind enough to be like, well, the cameo and Dirty Work. I would say if it had been without Rushmore, I felt like with the co-starring role in Wild Things, as well regarded as it was, and the other movie I hadn't seen, I would have actually argued a Chevy Chase point if not for Rushmore. so because he's just fun in that movie, and I have a real soft spot for Dirty Work. So we hit 99, and I looked up the two things Bill Murray did in 99. I had never seen Scout's Honor. It's a short. I don't know it. Cradle Will Rock, I remember because when I got my first job at Hollywood Video in the year 2000, this movie,
moment in time.
This movie that came out in 99 was it had its moment as a new release. So I stared at this box art for so long. And I remember watching it at least once, but I don't remember a lot about it. But it was Tim Robbins, like actor Tim Robbins, writer, director, like debut. Bill Murray is not the lead role. He's not listed as the lead. He's in it. He's got a good co-star point, whatever. And listen, he'll get the point by default. I hate to end the decade on default, but Chevy Chase didn't do anything in 1999. So,
right. Yep.
I hate to go out with a whimper. 98 would have been. That's why I thought Rushmore was 99. And I was really excited to hit that as the end of the decade. Like, what a great way to end it. But it is what it is. But Bill Murray fucking smoked Chevy Chase in the 90s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
to 3, right?
To 3, and I put an asterisk in 92 with Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Yeah. So interesting thing, because we did 80s versus 90s, and we split the decades. Chevy Chase 80s, Bill Murray 90s. We are running along in this episode. There's a bit I want to do, and we are going to speed run the next. I don't want to hit the 2010s. Let's say the next decade. Okay. We are going to speed run the 2000s, because for whatever stars fell off, you look at Chevy Chase, his star had fallen off, right? Pretty bad compared to Bill Murray, especially as the decade ended with Bill Murray's big resurgence. But 98 and 97, you have Vegas Vacation and a fun cameo in Dirty Work. Dirty Work doesn't make a lot of money, but for fans, it's well regarded. So I could at least say Chevy Chase has a shot at redemption in the 2000s. Would you credit me a shot?
I would agree. He's fallen behind, but he's not. He's within striking distance.
We would say if he made the right career moves, he could come back, right?
I mean, look what Bill Murray did with Rushmore. Like, who's to say Chevy couldn't have done that at that point?
I'm going to throw you out.
But a different reinvention.
I'm going to throw you out year to year. I'm putting these next to each other, actually, so I can have them up at the same time. I'm throwing these year to year, Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, so I can have them sitting next to each other. And we're going to speed run. We're not going to detail these movies, okay?
Yep.
You tell me if you've seen them and if you know anything about them with a short yes, no. And if I want to elaborate, we'll elaborate, okay?
Okay.
So I will tell you first off, I've actually, what's so funny is I've heard of the one Chevy Chase is in. I didn't know Bill Murray was in this. The year 2000, Chevy Chase is in the movie Snow Day which I remember as Nickelodeon's first ever feature film they released. No, second ever, because they did Harriet the Spy. This is a Nickelodeon movie, Snow Day. Do you remember Chevy Chase in Snow Day? He played the principal. Yes or no?
Yes, vaguely, but
Okay.
yes.
2000, Bill Murray was in Hamlet. Don't remember him being in a production of Hamlet. Second,
Not at all.
he was in Charlie's Angels, the big budget
Okay,
Cameron Diaz
yeah,
Charlie's Angels.
sure.
Obviously, that would be a Bill Murray point for that year. 2001, he's in The Royal Tenenbaums and Osmosis Jones. And I know Osmosis Jones is considered a bomb, but I love it and think it's very charming. And Royal Tenenbaums is a massive hit. You know both of those, I assume.
I do, yes.
Do you have any immediate thoughts, not on Royal Tenenbaums, but on Osmosis Jones?
Did not love it. So
Okay. I think it's very charming. Maybe it's because I like Frasier and David Hyde Pierce did voice. I don't know. I like everything about it. I think it's a very charming movie. Now we're going to really hit Chevy Chase doesn't do a movie in 2001. There's two shorts that I've never heard of. In 2002, he is another principal. He's the principal in the movie Orange County, which I remember being a somewhat decent hit and has Tom Hanks' son, Colin Hanks, in like his breakout part.
Jack Black also in it.
Yeah, that's right. Do you remember anything else about it? And it was written by the guy who did School of Rock, which is, I think, why Jack Black was in it.
Oh, Mike White?
Yes, he wrote that movie.
Cool. I did not remember Chevy was in that. I do like that movie, but apparently I don't remember a ton about it if he was in it.
Where we would give Chevy a default point if we did for that year. And this is actually how I'm doing the tiebreakers. We're speed rounding. So Bill Murray still gets 2000. Andy gets 2001, but we're giving Chevy 2002 on default because Bill Murray didn't do anything. 2003, Bill Murray gets his Oscar nomination with Lost in Translation. So 2003, which I assume you know of, seen. Do you have any thoughts on how that movie has aged? So you've seen it recently. I hear some people don't think it holds up very well.
Here's another hot take. I'm not a big fan of that movie.
Okay. I was an artsy fartsy kid because I was 20 years old, and I thought, oh yeah, I bought in to every bit of hype for that movie in 2003, and I recognize that probably makes me a douchebag, but I was there for it.
Okay.
Chevy Chase doesn't do a movie in 2003, so Bill Murray gets the point by default. Let's ignore his Oscar nomination because you would have gotten the point either way. So 2004, he does two wildly different movies, Bill Murray. He does the voice of Garfield in the Garfield movie, which everybody makes fun of, but then he does Life Aquatic with Wes Anderson. Do you know the famous bit about why he signed on for the Garfield movie?
I don't.
Bill Murray says he signed on to do Garfield because he saw it was written by Joel Coen and didn't realize it.
A Coen Brothers movie.
He didn't realize he signed on for the wrong Coen Brothers.
Oh, that's tremendous.
So that's why he says he signed up for Garfield.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Then in 2004, Chevy does... Listen, I'm just going to speed run these because we've officially run out of things you've heard of. Because I thought maybe a couple after Orange County. 2004, Bad Meat. 2005, Ellie Parker. 2005, The Karate Dog. 2006, Dougal. 2006, Funny Money. 2007, Cutlass. And then he joins Community.
Wow.
Bill Murray, meanwhile, goes on to do more Wes Anderson movies, Get Smart, Zombieland, and he does the Ghostbusters video game, which I mentioned earlier, which I like a lot. Which I know isn't a movie, but he does the Ghostbusters video game in 2009, and I said I wanted to cover the 2000s. So for me, to have him win the decade in general, also what a fun button, because he does Zombieland in 2009 as well. So to me, it's like a great button on all of this. But obviously, if you wanted to say a tiebreaker, which wasn't going to be actual one, he wins the 2000s also, if you really wanted to go for it. But we'll wrap this up. This episode's so fucking long. Even when I cut stuff out, this episode's going to be like 2:15.
Have fun editing this one, Mike.
I'm miserable thinking about it already. But this has been really fun.
Here's a hint. Cut out the Batman shit.
Wow. Was it bad? Legitimately, was it bad?
No, it was fine. I'm just giving you shit.
No, now I need to know. Was it not entertaining in any way? No, I feel bad.
No.
I hate everything. And I hate everyone. If you hate us, you should email me at MikeBarcode, MikeBarcode @gmail.com. That's MikeBarcode, MikeBarcode @gmail.com for any critiques, criticisms, and disagreements. If you love us, however, 5-star review on your podcast provider of choice. You can also find me, MikeBarcode, on TikTok and Instagram and socials. Randy, any other thoughts or final things before we get out of here?
I mean, if you go back 2 hours and 15 minutes, Mike, I remember I said I love you, so you don't have to worry about too much about that. There's no hate there, right? So it's we're not friends, but I still love you, right?
I also know that was brought on by duress, so that I guilted you into that. That was the podcast equivalent of me having a baby to save the marriage. That's what that was. I got nothing. I know it wasn't love. I was just trying to keep you here. So.
Where else do we go from here?
I think you say the thing that lets us end the episode and we get out of here.
On that note, goodbye, everybody.